Don in London, hello. It's the 21st of February 2013. My video is all about recovery from addiction to substance or behaviour. You can have both. I was addicted to alcohol. My behaviour is also quite addictive towards trying to be perfect, and I never got there, not by a long chalk. And addicted to certain people, places and things, adoring people, loving people, namely girls, and also trying to be included and make the best of life as I possibly could. But I lost the plot in the end. My best friend, alcohol, turned on me. No, it didn't. I just couldn't drink anymore. It stopped being joyful and convivial. It stopped being useful. It stopped being a coping mechanism. It stopped being my best friend. It became a killer malady because I just couldn't stop drinking 24/7, because life got to a horrible place of dark desolation and emptiness. Nothing left except oblivion. And sometimes I thought oblivion was better and hoped I would never wake up. So I was in a bit of a state, and without the help of professionals who kept me alive on more than one occasion. And you know, the horrible thing about addiction is when we just come out of another death-defying situation, which is where it gets to, we are full of jokes, trying to make light of it, and it can kill us. So I was very lucky somehow to survive all of that and get to a place where I thought it couldn't get any worse, no matter what I did to myself with alcohol, or just hiding away and waiting for the inevitable end. It couldn't get any worse. At least I thought so. So I asked for help, and professionals gave me a bit of help, and then suggested I might go to a fellowship called AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. The very last place on earth I wanted to go. A, because I didn't trust it, and B, I didn't trust myself, or the other way around. I didn't trust myself, and therefore I didn't trust anything. But it was made as a suggestion and not as an instruction. And that's what I've found in fellowship with AA. There are no instructions, there are suggestions about how to live life. So I'm going to share the AA preamble and then some of my thoughts and feelings this morning, all about restoration to sanity, which can happen today. I can get a bit mad as hell, but I can be restored to sanity with a little bit of help and direction, maybe, learned as I go along. So everything can change in the moment of now. I can keep on learning the best way forward. So the AA preamble, for those who don't know it, and for those who know it. And as you know, if you are in fellowship, I do not speak for you, and I do not speak for anyone else. I speak about how AA helps me on a daily basis, and this is how we do it. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share this. They share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem, common ground, common sense, and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking, and I went to AA without a desire to stop drinking. I just wanted the horror of my life to stop. And it turned out that drinking was the cause of the horror. But I didn't know that at the beginning. There are no dues or fees for AA, so if you haven't got any money, no problem. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. So those of us who've got a few pennies, we put it into the pot to cover the rent of a meeting place, tea, coffee, biscuits, and a bit of literature, which might be helpful, like this little blue book about AA. So AA, this is, well, let's start with what you can do. You can do this. You can be allied with any sect, denomination. You can have your politics, your beliefs, and your organisation and institutional connections. You can engage in controversy, and you can endorse or oppose anything. However, AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, but you are. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, but you can. Neither endorses nor opposes any causes. You can. AA doesn't. As a fellowship, this is what we're there for. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety, so you get your freedom back to be whatever you want to be and however you want to go about it. There are some traditions which hold the fellowship together, which are not rules, laws or regulations, and there are some steps you can take as a person to get to the truth of who you are, who you were and who you are today, and then be free to live your life as you choose and you see fit, as long as you're fit. So AA has straightened me out when it comes to alcohol, and the fellowship is a great place to be, in my opinion. It's a sanctuary, anonymity being a sanctuary, to find out what's going on. And some people take it further than that and say anonymity is the spiritual foundation of the fellowship. I don't want to argue with that. At the same time, each person needs to have the freedom to choose their direction and how they want to live their lives. So there can be conflicts of feeling, conflicts of thinking, and also conflicts in action, but these are some of my thoughts for today around sanity. Anonymity provides me and you with the sanctuary to learn the truth. Truth, love and wisdom is my spiritual connection in the moment of now. So I'm learning about truth, love and wisdom in the moment of now. Being restored to sanity on a daily basis, contingent on my ability to live to the truth, keep on learning how to love people, and especially keep on learning how to be loved back, because that was one of the things I could never really get to. How could you possibly love me when I'm not this and I'm not that? That's why I kept on striving and trying to be the perfect person for you. And indeed, it's not being perfect, it's just being a human, having a human experience, which is important. And the wisdom to know the difference. By the moment, minute, hour, and for today. Anonymity providing sanctuary to learn all about the truth, love and wisdom in fellowship. So truth, love and wisdom in fellowship is the many voices, and not one voice, and certainly not just my voice. So, for me, anonymity provides sanctuary to share experience, strength and hope, without the world looking on to judge. Judging good, bad and ugly, as more is revealed about how to live in recovery today. So by sharing experience, strength and hope, good, bad and ugly, we get an idea of how other people have made it into sobriety and stay sober one day at a time for donkey's years. The reason why is because we don't look at the years. I'll be alright if I get to 2015. It's, what can I do today? How do I make the best of my situation today? Whether I'm a newcomer, a middle timer, an old timer, or just a plain simple day timer. Living in the day. A safe place. This is what fellowship is for me. A safe place, a haven and a place where people can respect what has happened to each other, what is happening, and how the 12 steps improve our sobriety and way of life. To be free. And common ground, common sense and gumption are what the 12 steps are all about. We learn by sharing our own experience, strength and hope, and also listening to others share their experience, strength and hope. And when we feel vulnerable, feel judged, and might be the subject of gossip, gossip kills people. So anonymity is primary and it's sanctuary. Dealing with the disease, a killer malady, when we make light of our situation, which we often do, we do, because that's how we deal with it, in a superficial way to start with. We make light of it and we create tall stories and horror stories. I mean, there are enough horror stories. Every one of them is a horror story. We don't need to elaborate, but we do, because we're human. And we want to emphasize the point. Anyway, I'm trying not to do that. So we learn by listening to each other. And we can feel judged and vulnerable, and gossip does kill people. dealing with the disease, a killer malady, when we make light of our situation, which we often do, we do not see the harm that can be caused by gossip inside and outside fellowship meetings and groups. Now, Oscar Wilde, that famous poet, said, and playwright and writer, he said, the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. And he was a firebrand with his own ideas about his life and how he wanted to lead it. And he was an outcast in many ways in his lifetime. But this is not true in recovery. Gossip definitely undermines and can ruin lives. So, I'm not being sanctimonious about this. Anonymity is providing sanctuary to get to the truth, and hopefully without people being gossiped about. But the human condition is, don't forget, we've got people one day sober through to many years sober, and newcomers will get together and say, have you heard their story? And the answer is, well, every time we do this, we are singling out people, and it's gossip. And if the person hears the gossip, good, bad or ugly, it can ruin it because they don't want to be talked about. And that's right, it does undermine lives. Anyway, for me, and this is just me speaking for me, I can't speak for everyone, I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't speak for you either. But if you say to me, are you sure you should be doing this? Don't you know better? I do get upset, because the answer is no, actually I don't know better, just yet. Anonymity is a personal choice in recovery. So it is. Everything's a personal choice in recovery, and how you conduct yourself is your own personal journey. And absolutely respectful and accepting of personal choices, this is me, means that some of us choose anonymity and some of us choose to share our situation wherever we feel it is right. Sometimes there is no anonymity because the problem is so obvious to everyone in our community. When we become sober, it is also obvious we've done something about our malady. The choice around anonymity will always be personal. At the same time, it is not for anyone to impose their own personal judgments about anonymity on another person in fellowship. And this is my opinion. And just because I say it well doesn't mean you have to believe it. It's what is true for you which counts, your personal freedom. And I don't want to undermine that, but please don't undermine mine. So sometimes there is no anonymity. That was true for me. Because the problem is so obvious to everyone that when we become sober, it is also obvious we have done something about it. The choices around anonymity will always be personal. At the same time, it is not for anyone to impose their personal judgments about anonymity on another person in fellowship. And don't forget, the question of anonymity is a group conscience situation which is always up for challenge. And just because another person cannot agree with a group conscience and they can't stand the group they're in or the meeting they're in for whatever reason, they can go to another meeting, but this is within fellowship and not out in the public domain where we are. At the same time, it's not for anyone to impose their personal judgments about anonymity on another person in fellowship. Within meetings, clearly in meetings, anonymity is sanctuary. The before meeting in a coffee shop, the meeting after the meeting, probably in another coffee shop, where everything is held. Yeah, everything is out there in the open. It's not that anonymous, especially where I am. People in coffee shops think, oh, here they come, the sober lot. They drink lots of coffee, eat food, and they behave themselves usually. We like them. So that's important. And it's not for one individual to tell another individual how to conduct themselves outside fellowship. Freedom to choose always. You need that. Or you will be going against your conscience and it will cause conflicts. So be yourself. A bit like Desiderata, be yourself. It's your life and it's right that you work out what is right for you. But there are some things I do. Now, fellowship is not a one-stop shop for all the maladies which impact on individuals in sobriety. Fellowship is for sober 12 steps and 12 traditions. The steps to learn how to be open, honest and willing to change and live sober one day at a time. The traditions to be able to function, this is for the fellowship, to be able to function in unity, service and recovery. Other significant ailments often emerge as individuals get sober, and anyone in fellowship knows this is true. So the 12 steps are for sober, but there are other emotional conditions which prevail. For me, clinical depression, and then a few years in I've got type 1 diabetes from an operation. So if I listen to one or two people in fellowship, if you do this and you do that, you'll be alright. They're not medical people, and they're certainly not psychiatrists either. We are non-professional. We all learn what works as a higher power to keep sober today, and again this is a personal learning by experience, and not setting rules and regulations and making the big book of AA a Bible and making God a standard defined God, because he's not. He, she or it is not defined by the fellowship of AA. It's the God of your understanding or your higher power which is going to work for you, not me as an individual. And this is really important. The AA Big Book works because it describes how many people have learned how to be sober, and the reason why there are many people quoted and shared in the book, it is because of the diversity and individuality of each person in fellowship. If we stay around long enough in the fellowship, we hear the components of our story from the many sources and not just one source. The higher power works because it is the many, and the many diverse stories which are true for each individual that help us work out how to be sober ourselves one day at a time. So we're not relying on one person. If you rely on one person, you're probably going to bring them down, or you're going to follow their way, and that won't work, because you can only emulate, you can't, or imitate. Recovery is about being yourself. Now, I am simply one voice in recovery, and it's always the many voices which provide the support to help one person, so we need to listen to many people. If you start to believe that one person can save you from yourself, you are relying on a human being who may be attractive in many ways because of their experience, strength and hope, but they are not the higher power, and they don't represent it either. We are all part of the higher power today, and although some may have found their way to be sober, it may be or might be completely wrong for you. On the other hand, listening in a meeting and a group, you may find overwhelming truth coming your way from many sources and many people. There is always a concern around sponsorship. What are sponsors for in fellowship? Well, they're for the 12 steps. But putting people on pedestals and making some people gurus is not a good idea. In my experience, the truth, love and wisdom is always in the many people, and a higher power of God or good conscience manifests through the experience, strength and hope shared on a daily basis. The lower power, the insidious power of ego, is always present in meetings, because we all have an ego. The individual who quotes something from the big book or their own experience is a lower power, and then maybe tries to impose their lower power on another person or the many. If you don't like what someone is saying and it does not fit with your reality, better to check with many people rather than the convincing exponent of the selective truth. That's the lower power voice, and I have to include myself in that, because I'm just one voice, and my voice could be absolutely wrong for you, and I accept that. So, the convincing exponent of the selective truth. Those who are exponents of the selective truth are usually those with ego, a personal agenda about control and manipulation, and some people call such individuals contemptible liars. And there are contemptible liars around, because they don't look at the truth, love and wisdom of life. They're looking at what's my part in it, and how do I get control of it, and how do I do this, that and the other with it. Control is not good in fellowship, except on gossip. How do I feel today? I feel okay, and my emotional and what about my emotional and spiritual condition? So, emotionally, I feel content and confident sharing the truth of who I am, and that's all right. I don't feel quite so good about those who would shut me up and stop me from being myself. And this is about people in fellowship who feel they have the right to judge me and my outlook. At the same time, I would not be judged. I wouldn't be judged if I was silent and contained by some fiction about rules and regulations. We live in fellowship, truth, love and wisdom, unity, service and recovery as we choose, and respectful of other people's views, but we don't have to adopt other people's views in order to function in fellowship, because the group conscience for a group of people meeting together is always there to challenge what the meeting is doing and not what people do outside of fellowship. That's my opinion, by the way, and it could be selective truth. Well, it could be the selective truth which you don't like, and I could be wrong. Ram Dass, Richard Alpert, very famous person, who said this: of course I could be wrong, and that is true. I could be wrong, but at the same time I would not be judged if I was silent and contained by some fiction about rules and regulations. We learn to trust to the truth of life, and don't forget, fellowship is about sobriety, and then the rest of life is happening. And if I tried to pretend I didn't go to fellowship and I got sober by some magic on my own, that would be ego. I couldn't do it on my own. No way. Some people do get to a place of sober. I'm having an interesting discussion with someone who calls me something which is putting me on a pedestal, and I don't like it, because his opinion, and he's more intelligent than me, I don't know why he does this, but he is more intelligent than me, and yet, anyway, that's another story. And they're not in fellowship, and they're not in this country. So the truth of life is always changing in the moment of now, and that's why I am open to being judged, because you will judge me. And this is what it is. The truth of life for me is always changing in the moment of now, as we keep learning and we keep being open, honest and willing. Now, my values have always been open, honest and willing, and being fair with people, but we encounter people who are not the same, and they don't have our best interests at heart. But in the fellowship, we've got a bigger chance of getting to the truth of who we are and what we want to be. So, over the years, and not as many years as other people in fellowship, so there are very many wise souls with wisdom in the fellowship, I am learning what emotional and spiritual is to me. Emotional and spiritual, living to the truth of now and how it is developing moment to moment, and being able to feel life and experience life as it is, rather than how other people might feel it ought to be. So I will be judged, and some people will feel that I am disobedient to them because they want to impose their views and opinions on me. So I am disobedient to other people's views and opinions about how I ought to live my life. And that's why we all drank. So in recovery, the last thing I want is you getting on my cloud. You've got your own cloud of happiness or misery, good, bad and ugly. It's your cloud. You keep on your cloud, where your opinions fit with your reality, and I'll keep on my cloud. And sometimes we might bump into each other and there'll be lightning and thunder, but that's just life. Please don't think it's right to judge me, but of course you will, because you're human, and you will think I'm wrong on some things. Anyway, in the view, right, disobedient to them because they want to impose their view on me. If the view was right, I would adopt it, because it would be obvious, And as long as I keep to the truth of life, which is where the higher power is right now, everyone, my spiritual development and being able to listen with humility and change with humility is always going to be my preferred way forward. Anonymity is sanctuary. Truth, love and wisdom is my spiritual one day at a time. So that's me today. Took less time to say that because obviously I was quite passionate. I need you to be yourself so I can be myself, and respectful of you and your opinions. But I can't get you to respect my opinions, some of you anyway, and that's all right. Why should you? Truth, love and wisdom in the moment of now is my spiritual connection to reality. So that's where I am, and I'm pretty okay with that. And I'm absolutely okay with where everybody else is, because one person must not impose their view and opinion on another. It's called being an exponent of the selective truth, which is a contemptible liar. And of course I could be called that by those who don't hold the same views and opinions as me. So we have to work it out for ourselves in the end. So be yourself. Truth, love and wisdom can only be my way forward. Whatever you want to be, it's really better to do it sober, one day at a time. and sober and sanity are contingent on my emotional and spiritual understanding of truth, love and wisdom in the moment of now. The serenity prayer meditation, I still don't know who God is, couldn't define God, but there are 7 billion understandings about yes or no and maybe. So I'm just one of many. Just choose what is right for you and what works for you. I wouldn't want to change that in anybody, because behind truth, love and wisdom is how you are, how you love yourself and how you love other people. And forgive everything, every day. Or the resentments just pile up into a great big mountain again and cause us to suffer. Forgive yourself and everyone for being the best they could be at the time and how they are today. So, to God or in good conscience, the serenity prayer, the can do, can't do, and wisdom to know the difference is this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. In the moment, minute, hour, just for today, and we can change at any time. More information, new update, it's like a computer. Truth, love and wisdom, there's a big huge in the world of physics and science, dark matter and quantum physics. I've forgotten the name of the professor who was talking about it, but they explained something which was profound for me, and the question of God got closer. More tomorrow, if I can, one day at a time.